Hi, beautiful people. Hello. So, my name is Jessica, and I've led a very wild life. And I decided that today, in my car, right now, is the day to really share my testimony, let it go, and just tell you how God changed my life. If you can take anything from this, I just hope that something in this story blesses you, and that's what it's all about. And I personally love hearing testimony. So anyway, let's get this going. I was born in Houston, and then we moved to Detroit. Me, my mother, and my sister. And she was a single mom. She left Houston to get away from my dad, and he used to beat her, pretty badly, and it was all pretty bad. I will always love Detroit, and we were poor. Like, we were real poor. I had family, but they were all kind of like scattered and a bit, bizarre. There's a long line of schizophrenic, there's like murder in my family, child molesters, and some lovely people too, but they've all scattered and nobody was really around, but it was me, my mom, and my sister. So one day my sister woke up. She's my older sister, Ashley. She woke up and she was paralyzed on one side of her body. Come to find out, she had leukemia. And my mom, bless her heart, was such a hard worker. So in order to get government housing, because we were poor, so she had to go to school full-time, work full-time, and she started taking care of my dying sister. So she was kicking butt, and there really wasn't a lot of time, for me. So I got left home a lot, which is probably why I'm so weird. I spent a lot of time in my basement just dancing. My mom always said, like, the day I was born, I came out feet first, and she's like, oh, you came out dancing, so that was my therapy from the beginning. I would just dance. My sister handled her leukemia treatment like a boss. I ended up, over time, we lost her. She died at 9 and I was 8. That was kind of the beginning of me, like, just wondering, like, okay, where do you go when you die? I was just a child. And my dad started coming back in the picture because he found out that he was dying. He was diagnosed with HIV, and he was dwindling away quickly also. So he wanted to spend his last days with his kids. And like, he was an artist. He couldn't keep a job. So he wasn't really helping with child support or anything, but he just was so much fun to be around. He would sing and dance with me. He taught me my first few dance moves, and we would just dance. He showed me Michael Jackson, and I'll never forget. Remember the time when we fell in love, remember the time. I saw that video, and that rocked my world. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time with my daddy, and he also passed away not too long after Ashley. So he died of AIDS, and he died of a brain aneurysm. And so losing those two people in my family was heartbreaking, and I really love and honor my mom for that, for making it through. There were so many times, even as a child, I was like, is she gonna commit suicide? Like, I just could feel like a sadness over her, and I'm just so glad, I'm so grateful that she pressed on. And so shout out to the single moms out there, thriving, surviving, and taking care of those babies. So Mom and I had to press on. What did we do? So we moved around once, twice every year. We moved a lot, which I thought was like fun as like the new kid all the time. But also you just like never, you don't stick around one place ever. And I think that still is like tough for me sometimes, because I do the same, and I'm like, where do I belong? We ended up leaving Detroit and moving to what you want to call a nicer area, like suburban, whatever, and I hated it. I was, people would like whisper and tease me for you know, for being poor or whatever. And they had all their designer clothes. They looked like they were going clubbing. Like, they had, like, the best outfits. Tiffany's little jewelry and, like, all this stuff. And they're, like, in 6th grade. And in Detroit, everybody played together. There was no segregation of, like, cliques or, you know, cool or uncool and, like, gossip and stuff. Like, there just was not that. Everybody played together. Everybody was cool. So I was kind of bullied, you know. I went to junior high, and I became a nerd. Like, I was just so nerdy. I went to church. I started going to church. I started going to this after-school group. It was called Static, Students Taking Action Together in Christ. And, you know, there I really found my salvation. I was in junior high. I was, like, on fire for God. But I was real shy, and I dressed real weird. So happy. This was, like, one of the happiest times of my life. I was like, I can't wait to study. I'm going to study, and I'm going to study some more, and I just want to get good grades. Go to church. I was obsessed with cheerleading. I loved cheer. I was definitely bullied. Girls called me, like, weird and lesbian and stuff because I only had girlfriends, and, like, I was kind of, you know, sometimes a tomboy, but I would just dress funny. I don't know. Anyway, so something happened. Something happened that put a dent in my reality for a very long time. So my mom met a man, and he quickly moved in, and he was the angriest person I think I've ever met in my life. And he spent 3 years with my mom and I, and it became hell. It became hell. Like, every day he would call me, like, a whore. He would call me worthless, like a piece of shit, and useless, and a loser, and all this stuff. And I was a good kid. And he would speak death on me every day, and he would yell, and he would scream. And I think he knew better not to physically hit me, because that's when things, like, where he could really have charges pressed against him and stuff. So he was an ex-cop. He was a retired cop. And he was so mean to me every day. It broke my spirit, and it changed me. Like, I didn't matter, and, like, my existence was in the way. And I tried to, like, leave. I was, this went on into, like, high school and stuff, and I would try to leave, but I'd get reported as a runaway. And so I ended up, like, on a tether. I went to juvie, and they dropped me off in a mental home. And another time, because I was 17, I went to jail. So, like, anything I did was, like, the last thing was, like, I called the cops on him, because he was, like, screaming at me. He punched a hole in the wall, and, like, he was yelling. And then I pushed my mom because she was screaming at me, and she was always wasted. And then he was always yelling at me. And so when I went home, it was awful. Like, I didn't know how to let that go. It was like I don't really remember trying to talk to counselors. I just tried to, like, tell my friends, and they saw it, and they saw what happened, you know, and they just, like, didn't know, you know. Some of their parents would just hug me and hold me, and I would just break down and cry, and it's like nobody really knew what to do. But it's just like it was heavy, man. It really broke my spirit. And just shout out to kids who have been through that, and you don't deserve that. And I forgive him, and I just hope that he's gotten through a lot of his demons. But and you gotta let that stuff go. You gotta forgive, right? But oh, you know, there were times too I got, like, molested by family members, and other things were going on that were just like, ah. And then my aunt died of, like, a crack overdose, and, like, it's just messy years. I started smoking pot, going out, partying. I started to lose my faith in high school. I just kind of let him go. Would smile sometimes and, like, go along with the party, but inside I was, like, devastated. So I was changing, and came out of my shell. I was no longer this, like, quiet, really mousy girl. I was this, like, loud. I just wanted to make people laugh. I really wanted attention. I needed attention. I didn't care. You know, I was just like, someone pay attention to me. I'm hurting. You know, and they're like, oh, you're depressed. Just take these pills. And I'm just like, I'm not depressed. It's my situation. I'm a happy-go-lucky girl. Like, I'm an optimist. Like, I love to dance. I love cheer. I get good grades. You know? Like, I am not, like, a depressed person. It's my situation. Someone please help my situation. Get me out of here. And, like, nobody, you could be screaming and there's, like, nobody could help. And so, anyway, I ended up, like, because I was just trying to make everybody laugh, and thank God for my friends that got me through it, and, like, we were all smoking pot and partying, but, like, we had this, like, heart connection, and, like, they kept me alive. They kept me from dying. I wanted to die. And I used school as a place to get attention, to try to make people laugh. We would put all the teacher stuff, like, on the roof and things, and, like, you know, get on the table and lunch and do a back handspring, or go down the hallway in garbage cans and roll, like, stupid stuff. And I ended up, because of this silly stuff, I ended up expelled right before I was supposed to graduate. And I started working full-time, and I feel like I learned more in that full-time workforce than I did at school. No offense to stay-in-school kids, but so the day came when I was ready to move out. Let's move out. So my friend Carmen, she found a cool little trailer with, like, a bunch of people that lived in it, and we were gonna share some bunk beds and move into this trailer. And I decided, it killed me not to talk to my mom, but for months, like, I would cry myself to sleep sometimes, just like, I miss my mom so much. But I knew that I couldn't enable her, and I needed to, like, show her something. Like, if you need to, like, love me if you want me in your life. Otherwise, I'm not gonna be around for this. You know, like, this is not okay. We lived in this trailer with a bunch of other, like, little hippies, and, like, we would all just, like, smoke, and all the neighbors would come over, we'd all watch porn, and, like, just all hanging out. I don't know. We were dirt poor. We were so poor. We were making ramen noodles and Kool-Aid and stuff. And anyway, so, and I was working super hard and just trying to, like, you know, get on my feet and stuff. And then we couldn't afford that place anymore. I ended up moving into my friend's laundry closet. And I, like, decked it out all cool, lived in her laundry closet, and was working real hard. I was a line cook. I was a hostess at a restaurant. I worked at, like, a pool store. I was, like, a pool water analysis person, and, like, I did stock, and I, you know, all these different restaurants and stuff. And so I just worked so hard, and my faith kind of just wasn't there at that time, you know. I just wasn't even thinking about that. I was just like, oh, and I lost my virginity at 18. I wanted to save it for so long because I still kind of, you know, had that piece of Christ in me where I was just like, you know, I want to save this for something special. You know, you got to watch out for media, and you got to guard your heart against media because it is very influential. So, reading this Cosmopolitan magazine, and it's all about sex. Like, I'm flipping through, and it's just like, everything is about sex. I picked somebody at a party because he was, like, a rapper. He was, like, a white rapper, and he started, like, rhyming my name into stuff, and I was like, all right, you'll do. And so, and I just kept sleeping with people after that because I just, like, was waiting. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. It was false love, and none of it really, like, none of it was, like, helping, filling the void. None of it. I was barely enjoying that. Like, I was just, like, doing it to do it because I was, like, feeding some sort of, like, monster in me. And, like, so anyway, and I had developed this, also I had developed this fame monster where I was like, you know what, like, don't tell me that I'm worthless and I'm useless and going to amount to nothing. Like, I'll show you, you know. And that, like Michael Jackson from when I was younger stuck in my head, in the dance. And, like, I didn't know how I was going to be famous because I wasn't a musician, you know, and I wasn't, like, a singer and all this stuff. So I was like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but, like, I'm going to get famous. We were doing ecstasy, we were doing, you know, shrooms, that kind of stuff, and addicted to attention from men, just approval from others, you know, started to get addicted to work and all these things, and addicted to this idea of fame, that I was going to be famous, and, like, my, you know, name was going to be everywhere, and, like, I needed that, and that was the answer, right? So I was like, I'm not interested in college, I'm going into show business, right? So anyway, I was working all these jobs, and, I could barely afford to support myself. And one day I discovered stripping in the newspaper. It was like dancers. I'm like, I'm a dancer. I was on dance team, and I was, you know, I love hip hop and jazz and contemporary, and, you know, so, and they're like, this is not that kind of dance. This is like a different kind of dance. So I was like, oh, I don't have boobs. Is that okay? And they're like, come on in. And so I went on in, and I made like $200 the first night in cash, and I was like, I'm rich. trying different strip clubs all the time. And I was just like, never quite good at the hustle, but I danced my butt off on stage, and I would kind of stick with girls that knew how to hustle. And so that's what I did. And I was just like, making 500 to 1,000 a night, and I worked all the time, and I'd go to different clubs and whatever. I found a little like stripper family, and they became like the family I didn't have, and then I started getting into like dominatrix kind of stuff. And then I started exploring like being lesbian and being bisexual and being a swinger and this kind of stuff. And none of that all seemed like this ongoing, like, no offense to anybody I spent that time with, because your friendship is everything. But as far as like the sexual experiences, like none of that felt right. None of it felt right. And it felt wrong. And I went through it because I was like, oh, this is life experience. Like whatever. I was dead inside. I started to die inside even more because I was just becoming so desensitized, and I was covering up like anything, and all my worth was basically in my sexuality at that point. And people loved to be around me because I was like a dance machine and like sex machine, or like just, kind of this like life of the party, and like always down for whatever, and like, woo, like, oh, I got the drinks, I got the weed, like, oh, let's dance, we're going over here. I discovered like the industrial scene and stuff, and then got more into like rave scene, and then, all this. So, and then I eventually had my first boyfriend, and I was like 19, almost 20 or something. And love or sex is made for love, and it's made for God made it for marriage. But what I finally found is like when I loved someone, that's when sex made sense. And I was like, that's what it's for. It's for marriage, and I was not married, but I had finally fell in love, and I could understand like, oh, that's what the big fuss is. It's love. It's like that soul connection, but which is best reserved for marriage, bless his heart, because we're still good friends. He was my heroine. I was like addicted to him, and we would fight, and he was like just such a different person than I was. I was like an explorer, and he was like had social anxiety so bad and would drink so much. Oh, I love you, dude. Sorry, I know you're out there. I love you to death. It was like real toxic, but anyway, life went on, and it was like the stripper machine, and woo. And then I started getting into conventional modeling. I had a few tattoos, and they're like, oh, can you cover those up? Like, we can't, book you if you start getting like all these tattoos and stuff. And I was just like, no, I'm gonna get more tattoos. So I went and got my face tattooed when I was like 20 or whatever, and that was like my F it, like I'm going for it kind of tattoo. And I would just want to be like fully covered in tattoos. Like I just loved the ink, and that's what I wanted. Was to be covered in tattoos, and that was sort of also my rebellion and stuff. So there's a period of time in there where I started going to church again, and I was like, you know what? We're going to quit stripping. We're going to get sober. God put so many amazing things in my life so quickly. All of a sudden I was teaching like 10 dance classes, and he just put his people around me quickly. And then I started working at this like holistic center, and so I got really into like nutrition and stuff. I started being like vegetarian, and was for like 15 years after that, so like that kind of started more of my nutrition kind of stuff, and like holistic stuff, and fire for God again. And I was like, woo, my life was on track. And that dance studio was right next to the strip club that I used to go to. That was my favorite little strip club or whatever. And over time, I ended up back in that strip club. And then, so we went to Burning Man. I went to my first Burning Man. I'm sorry to say this, but I'm really not. So it's the devil's party. And I think it destroys, it's not Christian. And you can say there's like love there because I love people, and people are loving, but just the Burning Man way is not of God. And so anyway, I went there, and I was really inspired. It's very new agey, occult, and I ended up going 7 times throughout my life, and I gotta tell you, like, it's wild. It's one of the wildest parties on the earth. I was meeting all these people that were like, millionaires and like really good at what they do and at the top of their game, and because it's essentially just like a big Freemason party. I'm sorry, and like free love and naked and pass around your wives, and anyway, and sex and drugs and, music and da-da-da. It was like a rave to the max. But the art is really cool, and, I love people, and the people are awesome, and this is not a jab at people. We don't fight flesh and blood, but this is not sanctification at this place. The art is really cool. Anyway, so wild party. I was inspired because everybody was at the top of their game and on their hustle, and I was like, I'm just a stripper. And so when I got back, I got my GD, I went to school for personal training and nutrition, and finished that, and then I was ready to leave. And so I packed my bags and I moved to Vegas. And Vegas, baby. I swore that I would never strip again. Got there, and I hit the ground running, and I worked so hard. It was like, okay, I'm gonna be this rock star. I'm just gonna talk to everyone, get to know everyone. I just want to work as much as possible. I want to see my name on billboards. I want to get in magazines. I want to get on TV. I want to work in every these nightclubs, and I'm never gonna strip again. So what did I do? I did exactly that. I hit the ground running. I talked to everyone. I got my hustle on. I was on the grind 24/7 till my head hit the pillow, and right back up and doing it again. I did not stop at anything to get what I wanted. I had goals and I was going to get them. Getting all this work, and I'm just focused on work, and I'm making tons of money, and you can make a full-time career as a performer. I traveled the world, and I went to all these different countries. I went to 12 different countries and was on all these tours. I got to, I did a lot of stuff. And then, a little bit before that, I had discovered Suicide Girls. And if you don't know what Suicide Girls is, it's like a Playboy for tattooed women. You know what? I'm just going to tell it like it is. That is the worst company I've ever worked for. I just think that they really feed off of women. And it's not right, and the way that they go about their business is not right, and in no way, shape, or form would I ever promote them again. And again, this is no offense to the girls, because I've met some beautiful souls through them, but that is just one of the worst functioning companies you could ever work for, and anybody who's been a Suicide Girl for a long time will tell you that too. They're awful. So anyway. So, I became a Suicide Girl, and Bamboo was born. And I'm a performer, dance machine, wild child, rockaholic. She had this idea of love, but it was like a false love, and it was just like, I just want to give and get a lot of love. I need a lot of attention, and I'll give a lot of attention, and I'm just like, gonna be famous, and party, and music, and woo, and rave, and all that. So, I was naked on the internet, and I just and I was just working up a storm. I worked in every nightclub there, these decadent nightclubs. I got to go on stage with, did Guns N' Roses, did Kelly Clarkson, did, Skrillex and Diplo. I really felt like I had done it, I was making it, and it was just my world. And I just ate, slept, and breathed fame and my job and my work. But I starved myself for almost 10 years, and I'm still trying to come back from some health problems and I was a fire performer, fire eating, breathing, hoop, and all that stuff. And I did these reality shows that some of them I'm just not proud of, and just a lot of the stuff was just a mess. And, some may think that that was so glamorous and so this or that, but I had everything I wanted. I had everything I wanted, and I was so empty inside. I was like, okay, I'm making a lot of money. Must have blew through $1 million. I have the status I want. Everybody kissed my butt, People, treated me in a way like I was, a rock star, and I would go places, and they would know who I was, and they, pretty much would just, hand me what I wanted, and treat me how I wanted, and... I had gorgeous men all around me, gorgeous women, and I had my pick at whoever I wanted and whatever I wanted, and I was really empty. I was really empty inside. I found a boyfriend, another boyfriend, Michael Toast. I fell in love with him, and we fell in love And I, like, eat, sleep, and breathe dubstep. I was obsessed with it. The moment I heard it, I was like, what is this music? And I was like, I would die for this music. When I listened to it, it was like my soul was, like, crushing. Like, I was, like, oozing. Like, I was bleeding out dubstep. And so we shared that. Toast and I shared that. And he was a good man to me. And he treated me really well. And he was awesome. And I loved him so much. And what happened was, like, I started to get darker, and I started to really get into conspiracy theories. And I realized that everything kind of revolved around the devil. And I was like, why are we so focused on, like, all the music, all the raves, everything kind of always, like, went back to the idea of, like, demonic and the devil. And there was, like, Illuminati stuff everywhere and all this stuff. And I started to really pay attention to it, and started paying attention to, like, human trafficking and a lot of these things that just seemed really messed up. The music, through the parties, through everything. It was like the devil was everywhere. And I was like, why are we so concerned with, like, the devil and all this dark stuff? And again, I had been to Burning Man 7 times, and every time I went, it just, like, seemed really dark. And I went and I, like, would have a good time, but I also felt like, this is dark. This is dark to me. Like, what I see here is actually disguised as light and beauty, but what I saw was where I'll tell you some more in detailed stories about some of, like, the darkness I experienced, like some of the spiritual warfare that got really intense, and it's really wild. And I won't get into it right now, but I look forward to telling you some more of these stories that I really felt demonic presence, and I felt the devil, and I called on the devil, and I wanted to find out if the devil was real. And I was like, why are we so concerned with the devil if you guys don't actually think the devil is real? If you think the devil is real, then you have to believe in God. I'm sorry, but this is, what is going on here? So I was not a believer at the time, but, like, I could feel the spiritual warfare going on. And so anyway, I wanted to dig deeper, wanted to find out if it was real. So what I did is I started seeking out people and things and situations and all different stuff to enter the door and to figure out what was real and if this was real. I spun off into darkness, and I was doing really wild drugs, and I was really trying to find out if the devil was real. And what I found was so much darkness, and what I found was myself around people that were some of the most worldly successful people. I was around a lot of my idols. I was around people that I really wanted to be around. And if you want something bad enough, you can get it. And so I was putting myself, and then I started dating, like, a male prostitute. And I was just like, and I started thinking about prostitution myself, and, like, I was offered lots of money for really high-end certain things. And I was just like, this is going to kill me if I do this. And also, I had swore prior that I would never strip again, and I was doing all these shows, these glamorous shows, where you, like, get tickets to these big shows in Vegas, and you can work with all these, like, great names and stuff. This is, like, I want to make some more money than this, So it was like, oh gosh, they're offering me so much to be a high-end prostitute. Oh, I can't quite do that. And we developed this, like, burlesque group, and anyway, I ended up back in strip clubs because they paid so much money for these same shows that we would do in Vegas. Like, when you go to a topless show, it's all choreographed and it's supposed to be, like, all, this, like, fancy little show. But they were booking those in strip clubs, and so I decided to, screw it, man. I'll take that route. Made tons of money, and traveled to pretty much every state in the country several times over. Barely ever took a break, and I was just, like, fire breathing, taking in all these chemicals, taking in all this, like, sex and drugs and rock and roll. And I would attend, like, different, like, Buddhist meetings and even, like, some Hindu meetings and stuff. So a lot of my tattoos are, different things, or chakras, or, like, Buddhist stuff and everything like that. And so that's where I was at the time, and it didn't change me in a way where it made me change my life. It just made me feel a little better about what I was doing, I guess. And so anyway, I'll save a lot of the spiritual warfare stories, but what I found was, like, and I was obsessed with a certain artist. I ended up sleeping with this artist, and, I got to dance for him in a lot of his, like, big shows and all this kind of stuff, and that was whatever. And I ended up sleeping with him, and I was like, okay. And then I slept with his manager, and then I started dating this other guy who was a DJ. and he was kind of not my type at all, and I just never thought that would happen. Anyway, I like fell for him, and I ended up like, after all this stuff, he like broke up with me, and I just like looked around at my life, and I was like, you know, I also like was dating a prostitute right after too, and I was just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? My life is surrounded by strip clubs and like obsessed with fame and money, and like I was almost about to go into like porn or like, you know, all that kind of stuff. I was looking at that and I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is awful. This is not a way to live. This is not love. Like, this is dark. And I just like stopped, and I felt like such a piece, like I just felt so wrong. And it was on Christmas. It was on Christmas 3 years ago. I was gonna die. I decided like that was the day I was gonna kill myself, and I was gonna hang myself from my canopy bed. Yes, thank God that I had one friend who doesn't like celebrating holidays. He came over, and I just felt so bad. I feel like I ruined his Christmas, so he just sat there and cried with me. Since he was there, it got me through that day. And I cried a lot, and I didn't kill myself. But I really, like, there was this death over me where I was like, I am not going to last long. It's like, yeah, I'll go out with a rock star, right? And that's it. Decided that I had a really good friend through some of this, and we had lost touch. Yeah! What's up? From the moment I met her, I knew she was special. And I was closer to her than I've probably ever been to another human being, really. I had heard that she gave her life to God. Let's call her up, you know? Let's get her over here. And so she came over to my house, and she had a glow about her. She was an entirely different woman. Wow. And that really resonated with me. I decided one day, again, I was so sad in these times. I was so empty, and I was going out and partying, and I just felt like I was surrounded by like just surface encounters and like just people that wanted to just have sex and just wanted to be my friend because I had jobs for them and because I had some sort of like name or something. And like I just, you know, no offense to them obviously, but like I just felt so empty. One day, while sober, I was sober that day, and I remember that. I was about to go into a Buddhist meditation, and so I sat down and I thought, like, you know what? I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray to God. And this single prayer changed the rest of my life. I closed my eyes and I prayed. And I was beamed with light and love. I was beamed with love. And I needed love for so long. I needed love. And I was like beamed with like, it felt like every cell of my being was like beamed with love, like real, unconditional love. And like I had chills all over my body, and like I was just like surrounded in white light, and I felt like God just had his hand on me, and I just cried. I cried for hours, and I sat there and I just cried, and I poured into God, and I was like, God, I'm so sorry I left you. I am so sorry that I came out of that like, oh, wow. Like, where do you go from there? And I started going to church, and started going to church a lot. I started at this little gospel church. It was wonderful, and I just kept pressing in, and then I just started to change. And my friends are like, "Why are you changing? Like, what is this? What's going on?" And I was like, you know, I was just trying to let God work in me, and I was like, everything needs to change. What am I doing?
Your word says that you're faithful and you're just to complete it, God. Yeah. So, Lord, we thank you and we give you glory in advance, God, for what you've done in Jessica, what you're doing, and what you will do, God. So, Father, we baptize our sister in the name of the Father, the Son.
Friends of my life, and I was pressing into God, and I was like, okay, what is my calling? What is my purpose? What am I doing? Where am I going? What am I meant to be doing?
You're adopted now. You are adopted, okay? So just know that.
it was on my heart so clearly that he said, don't be afraid to lose everything you have. Don't be afraid to lose everything you have. Because what did I have? Like, none of it. All this worldly stuff, especially what I had at the time, like, it needed to go. He needed to prune a lot from my life. He had a lot of work to do in me, and I had a long way to go, you know? And I'm still a work in progress, but he had some work to do in my life. Amen. So, what happened next?